person who had a major influence on Robert's life was comedian Dom DeLuise. Robert likes to say that Dom really believed in his work. This is because whenever Robert would phone Dom's house, Dom's wife would answer, and Dom would whisper to her, "I don't want to talk to him. Tell him anything. Tell him I'm too busy to talk because I'm admiring his work." It's fair to say that Robert has made a career out of insinuating himself into the lives of many Hollywood celebrities and their families in the hopes of ending up in their wills. And he has succeeded in a number of these attempts, as quite a few of their wills were altered to read things like, "Under no circumstance whatsoever should any of my possessions go to Robert Aragon." But certainly the most important thing to happen to Robert's artistic career was when a fledgling soundtrack company was desperate to find a cover artist, but they needed someone who would work inexpensively. Well, not exactly inexpensively, really cheaply. Okay, for free. There was only one problem. Robert failed to inform the company that the reason he had been only drawing black and white pen and ink art up to that point was not because of any artistic leanings toward this stark and visually arresting style, but because he was colorblind, which was discovered soon enough when the first cover he worked on for The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms contained a purple dinosaur, and it was not Barney. Once the company discovered they could scan Robert's paintings into a computer and digitally alter the color and all other aspects of Aragon's art, a successful business relationship started that has lasted for 19 years. Well, a friendship eventually arose between Robert and the owner, but that took about 18 and a half years to actually form. And it will very likely end at the completion of this tribute, if not sooner. But I'm proud to say the people love our company's covers, or some of them, and the ones they especially like are the ones where Robert didn't meet his deadlines, and instead we just went with the original poster art that was created decades ago when the old movies were originally released. This friendship has withstood many difficult times, not the least of which is when I, who have been a professional writer for 35 years, did not win a prestigious Rondo Award for my writing, but Mr. Aragon somehow managed to win a Rondo for his writing, which is really amazing because his writing is even worse than his painting, which is something he never won a Rondo for. What helped me overcome this slight was when the people who give out the awards told me the only reason he won his Rondo was because he had promised to retire from writing if he ever received such an award. And they decided to just give him one now rather than have to read any further Aragon scribblings in the future. Speaking of retiring, Robert has retired more times than Muhammad Ali, Michael Jordan, and Brett Favre combined. He does this in order to try to get the attention of people who didn't even know he ever worked in the first place. Robert has offered a lot of excuses for his many retirements. He gets bored doing monsters and horror and doesn't want to be associated with them anymore. He wants to be taken seriously as an artist. But Robert has, over the years, tried a wide variety of other artistic ventures, all of them usually unsuccessful. So he keeps on retiring since ghouls and horror is the only thing he can do. Over his career, Robert has done art for all sorts of commercial products, from standees to trading cards to skateboards. When Robert was approached to create standees, these stupid cardboard things that are supposed to stand up, he decided he was going to become the king of standees. Until he actually drew one and realized how dumb they were. So he was the king of standees for about 2 hours. Robert's trading cards have assumed their proper level of importance in the lucrative trading card industry. Lucrative for the trading card companies, not so much for Robert. Last year, an entire box called The Art of Robert Aragon was released, featuring dozens of his paintings. It was a huge success, really was, huge success. The main reason was the images were so tiny you couldn't even see the art. After painting skateboards, Robert decided to take that basic skill and apply it to one of his true loves, surfing, which he had been doing since he was about 19, as he spent a lot of time at Imperial Beach. Robert didn't take up the sport because he loved the adrenaline rush of riding the big one, or because he liked the eternal conflict of man versus nature, Rather, Robert had developed an uncontrollable fear of solid ground, and he felt that taking to the water was his only way of escaping. Although there were already many people painting surfboards, Robert became the first artist to paint surfboards while riding them. The results were said to be magnificent, but we'll have to take people's word for it, as Robert mistakenly did his surfboard paintings using watercolors. So when the riders returned to shore, they were basically covered in a big brownish mess of runny color. It has to be mentioned that Robert has had to deal with more than his share of adversity while continuing on as a creative force in the world. Unfortunately, Robert has had some serious health problems throughout his life. However, on the bright side, he's the first person to have 17 illnesses named after him. Of course, 11 of them have to do with new strains of jock itch. There's another problem Robert has had to deal with throughout his life, and if you've ever called him, you'll understand. When Robert answers the phone, instead of saying hello like any normal American citizen, he says pronto. In case you don't know what that means, that's a common greeting in Italian. It basically means, I'm ready to listen and speak. But that's not what Robert is trying to get across. He's actually saying pronto in Spanish, where the word means fast. Robert is trying to tell you to please talk fast because he has severe bladder control problems. And he has to run to the bathroom right away. So the next time you call in here pronto, it would probably be best if you just hung up immediately. Robert has had other handicaps to overcome, most noticeably his lack of height. It's virtually impossible for an artist to have any sense of perspective when everything he views is from such a low angle. And also everything seems so far away from Robert because his head is so close to the Earth's surface. One of Robert's artistic periods was named for a time in his career when his portrait art focused on the only part of the human body he could easily see from where he was. It was known as the Bunyan period. About 15 years ago, Robert was mentioned in a book that listed 100 artists to keep an eye on in the future. Sure. He was also mentioned in a few all points bulletins by the police as someone to keep an eye on. Something completely different. But due to this fame, he was contacted by the prestigious Bridgman Art Library, who wanted to represent his painting. To date, their most successful Aragon-related product has been a roll of toilet paper, each 2-ply sheet featuring a different example of Robert's artwork. Sure. Robert has a, I wanted to put this in, I didn't know exactly where it would fit in, but Robert has a little-known collection of Nazi memorabilia. I've heard about, never seen them, but after I'm done, I'd like any other Jews who are here tonight to meet me out by the pool so we can figure out how best to deal with this. One of Robert's most exciting projects dates back about 15 years when he told me he had come up with a great idea for a character the children would love. He showed me some disgusting cartoon drawings of what looked like regurgitated food from a cow's stomach. I asked him what it was, and he said, it's regurgitated food from a cow's stomach. He called it cuds. I told him quite plainly it was a sick idea, and he needed to go back to the drawing board. Well, naturally, Robert did what he always does when somebody disagrees with him. He began to pout, then he became surly, and finally he started leaving nasty, anonymous messages on my answering machine in a very bad Spanish accent. After a few months of this, I suggested to Robert that he keep the name Cuds, even though I thought it was stupid, and come up with a better cartoon character, something a little more lovable than a decomposed meal. I recall some of Robert's ideas. There was Toothy the Hungry Barracuda. There was a tick with Lyme disease, and I definitely remember the psychotic squirrel. I think he was named Nutso. So I said, Robert, kids love bears. There are millions of them out there. There's your beloved Pooh. There are the Care Bears, the Berenstain Bears. So just make Cuds a stupid and adorable bear. Well, after about a dozen more years of further pouting, Robert finally relented, and a week ago, his first book about Cuds, the bear, was finally released to overwhelming acceptance at the WonderCon, in Anaheim, and there's already talk of making him a licensed character. And perhaps one day, a Hollywood movie will be made about him. Probably one where the lovable little fellow comes back from the grave and feeds on human remains in Zombie Bear Massacre. I will close this tribute by stating that the rest of 2014 and well into the future indeed seems to be looking very bright for Robert Aragon, which means you'll be seeing him wearing his dark glasses even more than usual. Happy birthday, Robert, whenever the hell it was.
You know,
Bravo.
he was right on many things, and he was wrong when he was right. So it's up to you to decide where he was right and where he was wrong. Yeah. Luigi.
I was right on more than I was wrong.
Yeah, I know. And I do have a Nazi memory. I'll see you at the pool. The bottom of the pool.
Oh, this is very